Gypsy Rose Blanchard. I'm probably sure you've heard of her. If you haven't, you live under a rock. Just kidding. Seemed to be such a lively little kid. She always had this big smile and these these cute big brown eyes, and just to make anyone's heart melt. Like, she was so cute. She always seemed so happy in the videos that she was in, and obviously in every recording that she was in, she was all smiles and cute, and she, like, like, she was always laughing and just having a fun time. And it's really encouraging to see such a small kid have so much joy, especially when she's got such a terminal sickly condition or sickly conditions. And over the course of time, she and her mother Dee Dee gained the sympathy of thousands on the internet. Raging sympathy. Everybody in the comments texting or telling Dee Dee, "Oh my gosh, you're so strong. Like, we're so proud of you. We love you. We're going to support you." And they would be given free trips to Disneyland because she was terminal. They would be doing charity events. They would go to conventions. They would get all these nice things, money, insurance, all this, like, just lavish life. And eventually they were given a house that, again, Dee Dee and Gypsy were very grateful for, especially because Gypsy was in terminal condition and she was dying. However, underneath this wonderful facade of, "Oh my gosh, my kid is so sick, she's sick with X, Y, and Z," there was an underlying problem, a serious dark issue underneath everything, which would soon lead to one of the most horrific crimes ever committed. Underneath this loving, caring facade of wonderful, like, motherhood and childhood, there was a twisted nature underneath that nobody knew. Nobody knew. There was abuse. There was trauma. There was emotional abuse. Any kind of abuse. All of it. All of it ugly and disgusting. And that is the story. Or this is the story of Gypsy Rose. The dark secret underneath. Hello, I'm Seraphim. I'm sure you have already heard a lot about Gypsy Rose. There's a lot of true crime podcasts that have already covered her, talked about her. There's also a lot of speculations right now, not just right now, but like in the past, about whether she's like this massive manipulator and if she's an abuser, which I will say, not to justify her actions, we don't go around killing people, but at the same time, she is still a victim of severe abuse and trauma. So I can't imagine her just acting out just how it would be with trauma. Especially if she has CPTSD, which I'm assuming she does have due to the trauma she's been through. This episode will be cut into several parts. It's going to be very short. I've been having a lot of stuff happen in my personal life that I haven't necessarily been able to, like, I've also been, I just had a lot of stuff in my personal life, so I haven't necessarily been able to write a good script. I am working on a few other scripts, and as for the wannabe Michael Myers, Jake Evans case, I will be focusing on that second part of the episode pretty soon here. There's going to be a few more episodes coming out. I've just been cooking up a few scripts. And before we move on, I would also like to say that I'm on Spotify. To all you YouTube watchers, I'm on Spotify. And because I've noticed in the comments, there was one person that commented that they couldn't find me on Spotify. So I will be linking my Spotify down below if you want to give it a listen to this specific episode. And if you want to give me a follow on there, that would be awesome. And for you Spotify users, I'll be linking my YouTube channel down below in the bio or the description. And you can check me out here as well, because there will be imagery. And with that being said, I would like to give the trigger warnings. I know, very long intro. But there will be mentions of child abuse, alleged CSA, SA, and violence. So if this is triggering for you, be sure to come back in the next one. And take care of yourself. with that being said, let's begin. If you saw that child with all her sweetness and cuteness, what would you think? Would you think that she's being abused, taken advantage of? Maybe even, I don't know, the fact that, like, there's something darker going on? Would you think that all of this was just a ruse? No. No, because it was so innocent, so sweet. And that's what makes it so scary, especially in the eyes of the outward looking in, you know. Dee Blanchard has something called, I believe I'm going to butcher this. It's called Munchausen syndrome by proxy. Which, again, I wouldn't say necessarily is a mental illness. Of course, it is categorized under a mental illness with psychology majors and just psychology in general. However, I do believe that because it isn't necessarily a mental illness simply because they are completely and fully aware of what they are doing. They have a conscience and they just don't care. And so, specifically with this case, Munchausen syndrome is, just without the by proxy, is where you make up fake illnesses for yourself. So that would be like me saying, oh, I'm giving birth to a baby, but there is no baby. You know what I mean? So I'm just faking it for attention. However, Munchausen syndrome by proxy is when you start getting dangerously, like, hyper-focused on other people around you, like loved ones. It usually happens to the young ones, the little kids who are very impressionable, the kids of the person with Munchausen syndrome by proxy. And so usually they'll get them feeding tubes or say, oh, my kid is terminal, for the overwhelming support and love that they'll get from people, which it does happen. I mean, it is good that we support each other, but at the same time, it's like, and they will go to any extent, ruin their lives. They will do anything to get what they want in attention and money. And so they do get a lot of insurance fraud by saying, oh, my child is so sick. So put that into consideration. But Dee has this specific illness. And from a young age, Dee first off got pregnant, and I don't remember the dad's name, but I'll list this in the second episode, the part 2. But she got pregnant by this guy, and he's very southern, so he decided to marry her, which is usually what happens, so they can raise this kid together. But, however, he ended up leaving shortly after the marriage and divorcing her because he realized he was not in love, because Dee was deranged. She was already very manipulative, very, like, just not a good person. Personally, I believe she was not a good person at all. And already she started saying things about Gypsy from a young age, like, oh, she has this, she has that, which it was very clear that Gypsy was just fine. So at the age of 3, Dee said that Gypsy had sleep apnea. She said from a young age that Gypsy had sleep apnea. Now, it is alleged to be true that Gypsy does have sleep apnea. However, there's some speculation saying that it's not true, especially with Dee's track record. So we don't know for sure if she actually does have sleep apnea or not. But it started with sleep apnea. Then it slowly graduated to something more serious like muscle dystrophy. And then leukemia, hearing loss, or hearing impaired, vision impaired. And then eventually she forced her daughter to get a feeding tube, which is extremely alarming because with these kind of cases, they can just easily pump their child full of poisons, toxins, medications, which is exactly what Dee was doing. Dee would often feed Gypsy so many pills that Gypsy would eventually develop like a pill disorder or something like that, and she would give her these pills so much and so many of them that Gypsy would often be sick, and she would like get horrible side effects from these pills, and often these side effects would be like symptoms of the diseases that Dee Dee was trying to have Gypsy have. And so throughout her childhood, she was fussed over and she was never had any freedom. But of course, she would comply with her mother because that's her mother, that's her best friend, as Gypsy had said. But as time moved on, Gypsy got older, and like any teenager would, she began to rebel against her mother because that's just a normal sign of teenagehood. And one specific day I will mention, because this is extremely important to the story of what happened. Her mom and her were on a road trip, I believe, and they stopped by a gas station, and her mom was cleaning the car, making sure everything was neat and clean and that the gas was filled. And she ends up asking Gypsy, "Do you mind going into the gas station real quick and grabbing me a tea?" And of course, Gypsy goes, yeah. But she takes this opportunity to grab a little extra money that her mother had given her for the tea. And she goes in, she rolls herself in on her little wheelchair. And in her cute, innocent voice, she's like, "Oh, can I have like some tea? Oh, and can I have that cell phone over there?" And so she grabs the cell phone after paying for it. And the store clerk doesn't ask any questions, is just like, okay. So she grabs the cell phone, the flip phone, and she puts it underneath her legs, hiding it in her wheelchair while grabbing the tea. And obviously, I actually don't know if it's tea, but I'm pretty sure it's tea. But she ends up grabbing the tea and giving it to her mother. So she wheels herself back out of the gas station, obviously gaining sympathy from the netizens around and the people around. And she gives her mother the tea. And her mother immediately questions her on where the extra money went, and she just says, "Well, I don't know, I just kind of bought myself some treats, but it's totally fine. Like, you don't need to worry about it. Like, it's totally fine." And it was just a little bit extra. So the mom, Dee Dee, obviously takes the tea and doesn't really say anything more about it, and they continue on their little road trip. However, Gypsy was using this phone to text a guy she had met on Facebook. She used it to connect to the internet. Also, through texting, I believe, through their numbers, she was texting a man very much older, pretty sure he was an adult, that she had met at a convention that they had went to. So, while texting this man, things are flirty and, "Oh, like, you're so cute," like, whatever. And he's like, "I totally miss you. I want to see you." And she's like, "I want to see you too." And then it escalates further to her saying, "Well, we'll never be able to see each other because of my mom." And he goes, "Well, why don't we just run away?" And then she's like, "Yeah, let's run away. Help me run away." So he and her start planning. They start plotting. And they're texting. And eventually, one night, she packs her things and she leaves this old computer that her mom used, but didn't use anymore. This old computer. She leaves that and her phone behind and runs away with this man to be free, which I can only imagine what this guy would have done to her any other way. But she runs away with him. She's free for the moment until her mom finds out that Gypsy is gone. Dee Dee looks everywhere, searches the house till she finds a phone and the old laptop that she used to use. And she immediately looks on it and finds messages between Gypsy and this guy. And she starts getting pissed. She's mad. So she tracks Gypsy down through the messages and pulls up, takes her back. And once they get back to the house, she breaks the laptop and the phone so Gypsy cannot talk to anybody else. And then she threatens Gypsy that she's going to smash her fingers if she ever betrays her again. Controlling much. But obviously Gypsy complies because, well, obviously there's a lot of emotional and mental abuse going on, and she doesn't want to betray her mother while her mother is also a terrible person. And Dee Dee also threatens to throw her into the shed and never let her come out ever again, so she can't talk to any more boys. Which I will say, the shed mainly consists of a toddler bed and a few chairs. I will show a photo. But Gypsy complies, and out of fear. But that's very short-lived, because she ends up getting on a Christian dating site and matching with the one and only second co-host. Just kidding. The second guy, the accomplice, Nicholas Gideon. Now, her and Nicholas Gideon matched immediately, and we'll be getting more in depth about their relationship in the next episode, and more in depth in everything in general. But her and Nick Gideon end up hitting it off immediately, and they start texting and chatting. And it's innocent at first, but teenagers are very hormonal, and so obviously it turns pretty sexual pretty fast. And so her and Nick are texting, and they want to meet up because they love each other. And Nick, throughout these messages, started saying very interesting things, talking about the fact that he had two people living in his head, that he heard voices, very psychotic, very strange. He was a very strange and socially awkward boy. But Gypsy ends up planning a day to go see Cinderella with her mom, and texts Nick, who's very far away, to come see Cinderella, and that's when they can meet up. But they have to do it underneath her mom's nose, without her finding out, because they'll never get to see each other. It's always like the Romeo and Juliet kind of vibe. And Nick complies happily, buys the tickets for the bus, comes down, and on the day of the Cinderella, Gypsy dresses up in a bright, like a beautiful gown, this beautiful blue gown with this big curly like wig, dressed up fully as Cinderella. And they make it to the movie theater, and Nick is dressed as Prince Charming. So cute. They're matching, but they come separately. So her and her mother come into the theater, and Nick is sitting some ways away, and she ends up asking her mom, what do you think of that guy over there? And her mom immediately gets defensive and is like, I don't know, it's weird that he's here by himself. No teenage boy would want to see Cinderella. Why is he here? And so she starts to freak out, like, do you know him? And Gypsy goes, no, of course I don't know him. I was just asking, I was just wondering. And she changes the subject, obviously watches a movie, but eventually, in the middle of the movie, she somehow convinces her mother to go to the bathroom. So she wheels herself off out of the movie theater and goes into the bathroom, into the handicap stall. And Nick eventually follows behind, and yeah, you kind of already know. You kind of already know what they end up doing. And normally in these episodes, I would kind of leave out that part of but it's pretty important, because while they're having their little fun, and it was her first time, by the way, which is absolutely heartbreaking, because not once has she kissed a boy. She has not hugged a boy. The first human contact she had with a male was intercourse. That is really sad to think about. And it was her first time too. So while they were having fun, he ends up saying something like us against the world. And from that moment forward, her and him, Gypsy and Nick, began plotting the demise of Dee Dee Blanchard. Today's episode is pretty tame from the others. It does get worse, and there are alleged mentions of rape or CSA or SA, because they were both adults, I believe. But anyways, I honestly want to thank you guys so much for the love and support of all the views, the comments, the subscribers. It's so crazy to me. I didn't think I'd actually make it this far. I'm not saying that I completely blew up overnight and I'm some celebrity, but I just want to thank you guys for giving me the support so far. And again, this episode is pretty short, so thank you for staying. I will say I will post every Friday, and I'll try really hard to make on each and every episode to make the best and most quality content, the most quality content for you and all the supporters that I have gained. I will make sure to make quality content because that's important. And so, again, thank you guys for the support. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to tell me what you think. And I'll see you in the next one.